Let's bring in Republican South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham now. Senator, you've been listening to the White House. She was right away out of the gate pressed by a reporter sitting near the front row. Why aren't we hearing from the president as this chaos continues?
Well, we need our president to speak to the nation right now. Yeah, you can protest all you like. That's part of being an American. You can't break windows and occupy buildings by force, and you sure can't intimidate a religious group to feel unsafe. I've never been more worried about my Jewish brothers and sisters in America than I am right now. I think it's incumbent upon the president to have an Oval Office address, not just about these protests, but by what's going on in the world against the Jewish people. He has a chance to rise to the occasion. He's ducking this issue. He's afraid of the Hamas wing of the Democratic Party. So I would urge President Biden to address the nation and be clear that every Jewish student in this country attending any university will be protected by his administration.
So, Senator, we've got this idea. We've got student protesters, and a lot of them have been threatened with expulsion or suspension. But then there's this idea of outside agitators that are really driving these protests. John Kirby yesterday, in a gaggle with reporters, said the following. Listen here.
I'm not aware of any evidence either in the intelligence world or through law enforcement about bad actors such as you're describing.
No bad actors in terms of outside agitators. But listen to what Mayor Eric Adams of New York City said just a couple of hours ago.
There are people that we have been watching in organizations that are not part of the campus. We've been very clear. There are individuals and organizations that are not students.
So we've got the president not coming out and addressing the American public about rampant anti-Semitism in these protests. And now we've got the White House saying bad actors. We haven't seen any outside bad actors, when clearly city officials, not just in New York, but in cities across the country, are saying absolutely they're driving this.
Well, I'm going to ask Senator Durbin, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, to have a hearing in the United States Senate about this. Let's get to the bottom of what's happening. Who's paying for all these tents? All the tents look exactly the same. There's a lot of money being incurred here to put on these protests. What's the source of the funding? The idea that there's not outside interest afoot here is laughable. There's an anti-Israel movement all over the world. I think it's behind this. As to students taking part, you should be expelled. But I'm urging the president to stand up for Jewish Americans at a time where they need your voice, Mr. President. And I'm going to urge the Senate Judiciary Committee to get to the bottom of what's happening. Mr. Kirby, Admiral Kirby, I think is wrong, and Mayor Adams is right. Let's have a hearing to find out what the truth is.
Okay, so Senator, just a moment ago, you called on the president to address this crisis and ongoing chaos directly from the Oval Office. So what could be said to bring any calm to the situation?
That every American person of the Jewish faith will be protected by my administration from harassment and violence attending schools or any other place. That we will help protect your synagogues. We'll make sure that you can be Jewish proudly, not be afraid, that you can go to school without fear of being harmed. I want him to say that not only to Jewish Americans, but speak on behalf of the Jewish people throughout the world. Secondly, I want him to tell these college presidents, you've lost control of your universities. If you don't regain control, I'm going to step in and cut your money off and send in military assistance if necessary.
What's really interesting to me, Senator, is in recent days we've heard from China and Iran on this. Here's what the Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman said about the protest and the reaction by some colleges to send in the police to disperse people. That said, the emergence of unfortunate videos depicting the American police's violent treatment of university professors who support Palestine and protest against the treatment of and protest against the U.S. support for criminal Zionist regime has exposed the disparity between rhetoric and actions and the behavior of the American government before global scrutiny. American officials lack the moral authority to lecture on human rights, women's rights, and freedom of speech. I mean, you take a look at China, you take a look at Iran, their self-interest is so obvious that it's to be laughable.
Yeah. Well, number one, what they say about human rights and how to treat women is literally a joke. There was a young girl beaten to death by components of the Iranian government because she didn't wear a headscarf. They're notorious for killing people who want to speak up and demand a better life in Iran. So I could care less about what he says. Here's the state of play in America. You have every right to express yourself. You have a right to protest publicly and have your say. You don't have a right to break into buildings, destroy property, and you don't have a right to make people feel unsafe because of their religion. It's time for the president to speak up here. This is getting way out of control, and President Biden needs to do more than have somebody speak for him in nonsense terms. Mr. President, the Jewish Americans, people of faith of this country need your voice. Speak up now. Stand with the American Jewish community, who is under siege like any time I've seen since I've been in Congress. Mr. President, they need you. We all need you.
Yeah, Senator, we're going to have to get going here, but just I want to say that Karine Jean-Pierre at the top there, there wasn't a whole lot of update from the president, but she did say that Biden would deliver the keynote address at the Holocaust Day of Remembrance on May 7th. He's going to travel to Capitol Hill to deliver the keynote address at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum's annual Days of Remembrance ceremony. So he is going to speak in a few days on this. But just a real quick final question to you. She just said, when asked, has he been in touch? Is there any phone calls, communication with these university directors, presidents? Is he speaking to anyone? I think, paraphrasing, no was the answer. Why do you fathom she didn't step out more prepared to say that the president is acting on this chaos?
Right. He's afraid of the protesters. There's a real Hamas wing of the Democratic Party who wants to not help the Palestinians but kill all the Jews. They say we are Hamas. There are radical elements within the Democratic Party and the country right now at large that would literally help destroy the Jewish state. We can't wait to May 6th or 7th. Mr. President, you need to speak tonight. You need to reassure Jewish Americans that your administration will have their back. You need to tell these schools, if you don't clean up your act, I will clean it up for you.
Senator, always great to spend time with you. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. All right. A lot of people are asking that question.